for more on all the developments in Washington and beyond. We're joined by Gabe Debenedetti, national correspondent for New York Magazine. He's in Charlottesville, Virginia. Gabe, good morning to you. Let's talk about the week ahead here, actually the next 9 days ahead. Assuming that impeachment sails through the House, what's the schedule on when that might happen? And more importantly, what is the support from Senate Republicans for a potential conviction?
Yeah, you're asking all the right questions here. We don't actually know what the exact schedule would be. House Democrats led by Nancy Pelosi have said that, of course, the first thing that they want to see is President Trump stepping down or Vice President Pence invoking the 25th Amendment and trying to remove him from office. That seems unlikely. So failing that, it looks like House Democrats are going to try and vote on impeachment this week, this upcoming week. And then what would likely happen is then it gets kicked to the Senate. But as we just heard, Mitch McConnell has essentially said there's no real way for us to get this done, probably until the 19th at the earliest. So it's possible that a Senate trial wouldn't happen until President-elect Biden actually takes over. You can, of course, impeach someone who's no longer in office. Senate Republicans largely have tried not to talk about this too much. There are some, however, looking at Lisa Murkowski from Alaska and some others who have said, you know, essentially it's time for Trump to go. So whether they would actually support an impeachment is an open question, and one that we're probably going to hear more about in the coming days. But if you have, she's not the only one who, of course, has been outwardly disgusted with President Trump in the last few days. So you might have someone like Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, and potentially others who have essentially said enough is enough.
Barring any formal any of this that you just mentioned, are there other consequences that could come out of this if none of this happens?
Well, it's a good question. I think that what you're having is a lot of public outcry about the president. In terms of legal consequences, it's an open question, of course, what his exposure is at this point. But you do have lots of people within the White House heading for the exits now. We've already had 2 cabinet members resign, potentially more on the way. And lots of folks who work in the White House and more broadly in the Republican Party are saying, well, we had our 4 years here. Let's move on. It's time to move on now.
You talk about moving on. What about the Republican Party? This has become the party of Trump. How does it go forward at this point?
Well, it's trying to figure that out right now, and there are pretty big schisms. You have someone like Lisa Murkowski, who I mentioned earlier, who is now openly questioning her own future within the party. But at the same time, just this week, the Republican National Committee itself met in Florida and re-elected unanimously Ronna McDaniel, who is the head of the Republican Party and a top ally of the president. And you also had a majority of House Republicans actually, after the riots, vote to object to the certification of the Electoral College. So those folks are still standing with President Trump. It's going to be a massive crisis in the party that's going to play out for quite some time.
Yeah, so much to discuss. Gabe, thank you for the insight. We appreciate it.